Hello, Internet. Welcome back to A Hat in Time. Unfortunately, due to my contagious stupidity, we did not actually record the vocal commentary that we gave during this video. As a substitute, I will be reading The War Against Boys by Christina Hoff Sommers. Why? I don't know. I just can't be entertaining for 38 minutes. So I will be reading from chapter 3 onward. Guys and dolls, let's begin. In the summer of 1997, I took part in a television debate with feminist lawyer Gloria Alfred. Alred was representing a 14-year-old girl who was suing the Boy Scouts of America for excluding girls. Girls 15 and older can join the Explorer Scouts, which is co-ed, but Alred, my god, what a silly name. But Alred was outraged that girls younger than 15 are not allowed in. She referred to the same-sex scouting as a form of gendered apartheid. I pointed out that the younger boys and girls have markedly different preferences and behaviors, citing the following homespun example. Hasbro Toys, a major toy manufacturing company, tested a playhouse the company was considering marketing to both boys and girls, but it soon emerged that girls and boys did not interact with the structure in the same way. The girls dressed the dolls, kissed them, and played house. The boys catapulted the toy baby carriage off the roof. The boys catapulted the toy baby carriage from the roof. A Hasbro general manager came up with a novel explanation. Boys and girls are different. Alred flatly denied that there were any differences. She seemed shocked by the boys' catapulting behavior. Apparently, she took it as a sign of a propensity for violence. She said, "If there are some boys who catapult baby carriages off the roofs of dollhouses, that is just an argument why we need to socialize boys at an earlier age, perhaps to be playing with dollhouses." Alred has powerful allies. Resocializing boys to play more like boys has been a part of gender equity agenda for several decades. Notably active on this front throughout the 1990s and early 2000s were the Wellesley Center for Research on Women, U.S. Department of Education, and Harvard School of Education. A Wellesley College Equity Seminar. In 1998, the Wellesley College Center for Research on Women sponsored a day-long teacher training seminar entitled Gender Equity for Girls and Boys, a conference for K-12 teachers and administrators. It attracted 200 teachers and administrators from the Northeast. Teachers received state recertification credits for attending. One session, Dolls, Gender, and Make-Believe in the Early Childhood Classroom, was concerned with sex stereotypes and how they defeat them. It was led by Dr. Nancy Marshall, a senior research scientist and associate director of the Wellesley Center, and two of her associates. According to Marshall, a child's sexual identity is learned by observing others. As she noted, when babies are born, they do not know about gender. Since newborn babies know very little about anything, Marshall's comment was puzzling. They don't know their blood type either, after all, but they still have one. Marshall explained that gender, indeterminate at birth, is formed and fixed later by a process of socialization that guides the child in adopting a male or female identity. According to Marshall and her colleagues, a child learns what it means to be a boy or a girl between the ages of 2 and 7. In those early years of the child develops a gender schema, a set of ideas about appropriate roles, attitudes, and preferences for males and females. The best prospects for influencing the child's gender schema are these early malleable years. These years are the opportunity zone. Marshall and her associates presented a slideshow explaining a young mind is like Jell-O. We can learn to fill it up with all the good stuff before it sets. What counts as good stuff for the Wellesley pedagogues is making children as comfortable as possible participating in activities traditionally associated with the other gender. One favorite slide, to which they repeatedly referred, showed a preschool boy dressed up in the high heels in his dress. It's perfectly natural for a little boy to try on a skirt, they said. The group leaders suggested that teachers use water and bathing to encourage boys to play with dolls, acknowledging that preschoolers prefer preschoolers tend to prefer same-sex play, which reinforces gender stereotypes. They advise teachers in the audience to force boy/girl mixed pairs. In a follow-up discussion, one of the participating teachers boasted of her success in persuading her kindergarten-age boys to dress up in skirts. Another proudly reported that she makes a point of informing boys that their action figures are really dolls. At no time during this 8-hour conference did any of the 200 participating teachers and administrators challenge the assumption that gender identity is a learned, socially constructed characteristic, nor did anyone mention the immense body of scientific literature from biologists and developmental psychologists showing that many male-female differences are natural, healthy, and by implication, best left alone. On the contrary, everyone simply assumed that preschool children were malleable enough to adopt either gender identity to suit the ends of equity and social justice. The possibility that they were tampering with all the children's individuality or intruding on their privacy was never broached. Oh, goodness. My neck is hurting. Early interventions. Throughout the 1990s, equity activists at the Department of Education promoted a national effort to liberate children from the constraints of gender. The Women's Education Equity Act Resource Center, a national center for gender-fair materials maintained by the Department of Education, distributed pamphlets that confidently asserted that social origin of femininity, masculinity. Here, for example, is a passage from the center's guide entitled Gender Equity for Educators, Parents, and Community. We know that biological, psychological, and intellectual differences between males and females are minimal during early childhood. Nevertheless, in our society, we tend to socialize children in ways that serve to emphasize gender-based differences. In fact, we know no such thing. Play preferences of chimps, rhesus monkeys, and other primates parallel those of children. A special issue of Scientific American in the spring of 1999 reviewed the evidence that these play preferences are, in large part, hormonally driven. Goodness me. Doreen Kimura, a psychologist at Vancouver's Simon Fraser University, wrote, "We know, for instance, from observations of both humans and non-humans, that males are more aggressive than females, that young males engage in more rough-and-tumble play, and that females are more nurturing. How do these and other sex differences come about?" Kimura points to animal studies that show how hormonal manipulation can reverse sex-type behavior. Research has exposed female rhesus monkeys to male hormone prenatally. That's the word. These females have later displayed male-like levels of rough-and-tumble play. Similar results are found in human beings. Congenital adrenal hyperplasia, or CAH for short, is a genetic defect that results when the female fetus is subjected to abnormally large quantities of male hormones, adrenal androgens. Girls with CAH consistently prefer trucks, cars, and construction sets over dolls and play tea sets. It appears, says Kimura, that perhaps the most important factor in the difference of males and females is the level of exposure to various sex hormones early in life. These sorts of findings undermine the simplistic view that gender-specific play is primarily shaped by socialization. The Department of Education equity educators promoted materials in the schools that ignored the scientific research. They assumed, along with Gloria Allred and Wellesley Center experts, that typical male and female play preferences were the result of imposed cultural stereotypes. Reading Sex-Fair Family Daycare is a model curriculum guide for daycare teachers developed by the Department's Office in Educational Research and Improvement. It offers concrete suggestions on how to change children's gender schemas.
Totally
The central
right
thesis
now.
of the guide is that
That's
the
what
only
I've
way to
been
win the
told
battle
to
with
say.
gender stereotypes is to stage interventions as early as possible, preferably
Look at that
in
thing.
infancy.
If only I could
Masculine
reach it.
stereotypes receive the lion's share of attention. Getting little boys to play with dolls is a principal goal. The 130 page guide includes 10 photographs. Two show a little boy with a baby girl doll. In one, he's feeding her, in the other, kissing her. The guide urges daycare teachers to reinforce the boy's nurturing side. It is important for boys and girls to learn nurturing and sensitivity, as well as general parenting skills. Have as many boy dolls as girl dolls, preferably anatomically correct, boys and girls should be encouraged to play with them. my, phlegm problems. Ever vigilant for gender stereotypes, the guide warns child care workers to be wary of charming mommy bears, wearing little aprons and holding a broom in one hand, and offers a new second verse for Jack and Jill, and with Jill leading a safety-conscious, rough and tumble-free adventure. This is going to be interesting. Jack and Jill went up the track to fetch the pail again. They climbed with care, got safely there, and finished the job they began. Well, isn't that just terrible? Who wants to read that? This government-sponsored daycare guide also urges teachers to carefully monitor children's fantasy play. Watch your children at play. They are stereotypes present in the fantasies and situations they act out. Intervene to set the record straight. Why don't you be the doctor, Amy? And you, the nurse, Billy. The purpose of these interventions is described expansively. Unless we practice non-sexist child rearing, we cannot fulfill our dreams of equality for all people. William's doll. Boys do not always cooperate with efforts to rescue them from their masculinity. Sometimes they openly rebel. In the 1994 book Failing at Fairness, education scholars Myra and David Sadker described a 4th grade class in Maryland, which the teacher worked with the boys to help them push the borders of the male stereotype. She asked them to imagine themselves as authors of an advice column in their local newspaper. One day they received the following letter. Dear advisor, my 7-year-old son wants me to buy him a doll. I don't know what I should do. Should I go ahead and get it for him? Is it normal, or is my son sick? Please help. The 9-year-old advisor is rather sympathetic to the boy. The teacher then read aloud from a popular feminist book, William's Doll. It is a story about a boy who wants a doll, to hug it and cradle it in his arms. His father refused and tried instead to interest him in a basketball and an electric train, but William persisted in wanting the doll. What's gendered about an electric train set? that's quite nice, actually. I wish I had one. When the grandmother arrived, she gently scolded the father for thwarting William's wish. She took William to the store and bought him a baby doll with curly eyelashes and a long white dress with a bonnet. William loved it right away. The story did little to change the 4th graders' minds. According to the Sadkers, their reaction was so hostile that the teacher had trouble keeping order. A few reluctantly agreed that the boy could have a doll, but only for a G.I. Joe. The Sadkers were surprised that the boys' would be so unflexibly traditional. As we observed our lesson, we were struck by how much effort it took to stretch outmoded attitudes. William's doll had been made into a play. Boston University professor Glenn Laurie tells about sitting through a production at his son's elementary school in Brooklyn, Massachusetts in 1998. Laurie, the father of 2 boys, when staring at the play, was not impressed. First of all, what is wrong with wanting your boy to not play with a doll, but to play ball? There is nothing that needs to be fixed there. Laurie was speaking for many fathers and mothers. However, his voice and sensibility seemed to count for naught with the resocializers. Shaping the gender identities of school children was a heady enterprise. And it was inspired and informed by the scholars in some of our leading universities. Preeminent among them was Carol Gilligan. Gilligan and her colleagues at the Harvard School for Education saw themselves leading a profound revolution that would change the way society constructs young males and females. Once children were freed of oppressive gender roles, Gilligan predicted a change in their play preferences. She and her associate Elizabeth the Bold firmly believed that so-called male behaviors, roughhousing and aggressive competition, are not natural, but artifacts of culture, superheroes, and macho toys. They said, cause boys to be angry and aggressive. The Bold reported on their studies that 3- and 4-year-old boys who were comfortable playing house or dress up with girls ended in nurturing roles in play. Unfortunately, as they saw it, boys' interest in playing dress up with the girls is rarely encouraged or sustained. By kindergarten, their socialization and immediate images kick in. Ooh, how scary. So gender reform, as well as lay in the Department of Education and Harvard, helped shape attitudes and policy in schools throughout the country. My God, Miss Valley. They were convinced that breaking down male stereotypes, starting in preschool, was good for society. Whether it was good for the boys never came up. In classrooms across the country, little boys got a message that there was something wrong with them, something the teacher was trying to change. It is doubtful that these efforts to resocialization were ever successful, but they surely succeeded in making lots of little boys confused and unhappy. Questions abound. What sort of credentials do the critics of masculinity bring to their project of reconstructing the nation's schoolboys? How well do they understand and like boys? Who has authorized their mission? To better understand the logic and motives of the resocializers, it is helpful to consider the arguments of the contemporary gender theorist. I cannot talk today. The world, according to Virginia Valiant. Virginia Valiant, a professor of psychology at Hunter College, is one of the most frequently cited authorities on gender schemas and how to change them. She is also a leading light in the National Science Foundation's Gender Equity Campaign Advance. With the help of a $3.9 million National Science Foundation grant, she and her colleagues established the Hunter College Gender Equity Project, where they have developed tutorials on gender role transformation. Her 1998 book, Why So Slow? The Advancements of Women, explains the urgency of that mission. In white Western middle-class society, the gender schema for men includes being capable of independent, autonomous action, and being assertive, instrumental, and task-oriented. Sounds about right. Men act. The gender schema for women is different. It includes being nurturant, expressive, communal, and concerned about others. Sounds about right. Sounds accurate. Now society, as valid, pressures women to indulge their nurturing propensities, while it encourages men to develop a strong commitment to earning and prestige, great dedication to their job, and an intense desire for achievement. That's not terrible. Such gender role socialization, she says, exacts a high toll on women and confers an unfair advantage on men. To achieve a gender-fair society, Valiant advocates a concerted attack on conventional schemas. Handing our parents interact with children is at the top of her list. For example, says Valiant, there is a widespread assumption that women are better with babies than men. Where did that come from? The common sense answer is that women's special affinity for babies is a powerful, universal, time-immemorable biological instinct. But Valiant dismisses such explanations and cites a large body of research showing how parents and other adults aid and abet children's preference and propensities. Valiant describes a study in which fathers are placed in rooms with their 1-year-old sons or daughters. On the shelf, in the baby's sight, but out of reach, were 2 dolls, 2 trucks, a toy vacuum cleaner, and a shovel. What does the father do, over and over again? Fathers were observed giving their sons a truck twice as often as they gave them a doll. They gave daughter dolls and trucks at similar rates. She mentioned another study in which parents appear to reward children for choosing sex-appropriate toys. Valiant concludes, it appears that parents want their children to conform to gender norms. And according to Valiant, those norms inhibit a child's potential to flourish later in life. Goodness me. As things stand, children learn to enjoy only half of what is potentially open to them, and half adults give them access to. Girls learn to take pleasure in being nurtured, boys learn to take pleasure in being physical skills. Girls' increasing interest in sport shows how quickly some of them acquire a taste for physical activity. We have yet to provide boys with a parallel opportunity for entrance. In the closing sentence of Why So Slow, Valiant says, egalitarian parents can bring up their children so that both boys and girls play with dolls and trucks. From the standpoint of equality, nothing is more important. From the standpoint of reality, nothing seems more unlikely. Most little girls don't want to play with trucks, as almost any parent can attest, including me, when my son gave his daughter Eliza a toy train. She placed it in a baby carriage and covered it with a blanket so it could get some sleep. Oh, that's adorable. Valiant heard that this sort of objection many times. She has an answer. She does not deny that sex differences have some foundation in biology, but she insists that culture can intensify or diminish their power and effect. Even if Eliza was prompted by nature to interact with the train in a stereotypical female way, there is no reason for her father not to energetically correct her behavior. We don't, said Val. We accept biology as destiny. We vaccinate, we inoculate, we medicate, and propose we adopt the same method to prevent biological sex differences. Okay, that's kind of fucked up. You would deny that parents and teachers should expose children to a wide range of toys and play activities. And Valian is right when she says that culture can intensify or diminish our natural inclinations. But gender identity is notoriously difficult to change. As one neuroscientist, Liz Elliott, observes, it is a potent, irreversible piece of self-knowledge that crystallizes children's perceptions and choice about much in their world, creating pink and blue barriers that parents find difficult to maneuver around. In the hands of little boys, toy baby carriages will be catapulted from the roof of dollhouses. In the hands of little girls, toy trains will be nurtured. Nothing short of radical and sustained behavior modification could change these elemental play preferences. Is it worth it? Is it even ethical? We vaccinate, inoculate, and medicate children against disease. Being a typical little boy or girl is not a pathology in need of cure. My God, birds are so loud. Failure to protect children from smallpox, diphtheria, or measles places them in harm's way. There is no such harm in allowing male and female differences to flourish in early childhood. These resocializers talk of gender apartheid. Never does again. That word. Of the schoolyard as a training ground for incipient barriers of conventional masculinity as toxic. For Valiant, the gender system is the source of massive social injustice. These are all extravagant exaggerations. These would-be reformers completely shut up, bird. Ignore or discount all the good achieved by a tolerant policy that allows sexes to really pursue their difference in play. More than that, this motivation to change children's concept of themselves is invasive and authoritarian. I hate crows so much. Children, what's called tomboy girls and sissy boys in the medical literature, are listened to. These children are powerfully drawn to the toys of the opposite sex. They will often persist in playing with wrong toys, despite relentless pressure from parents, peers, and doctors. There was a time when a boy who behaved like William's doll had been considered mentally ill and subject to behavior modification therapy. Today we have developed more enlightened and compassionate attitudes, one way to encourage tolerance, understanding, and acceptance. To extend to the gender identity and preference of the vast majority of children. What if Mother Nature is not a feminist? On March 21st, 2005, Radcliffe Institute for Advanced Study at Harvard University hosted a conference entitled Impediments to Change, Revisiting the Women in Science Question. The Auditorium Agassiz Theatre in Radcliffe Yard was packed. Dedicated to 1904, the theatre has been the site of many a spirited intellectual exchange. This conference was a forum not for debate, but for indignation over then Harvard President Lawrence Summers' speculation that innate differences between sexes might be one reason why women in the higher echelons of math and science. These 6 panelists, 4 from Harvard, 2 from MIT, did not challenge one another in the fashion of typical academic seminars, rather repeated and reinforced a common conviction that there was only one possible explanation for why fewer women than men teach math and physics at Harvard and MIT. Sexist bias. There were no dissenters invited? Because from the point of view of the assembled, that would have be like inviting a flat earther or a Holocaust denier. Goodness. One panelist, Harvard psychologist Elizabeth Stoke, flatly declared that the case against significant inborn cognitive differences is as conclusive as any finding I know of in science. Many scholars, especially Harvard University social scientists, sweep aside all the evidence. I believe, in 2010, David Geary, University of Missouri psychologist, published Male-Female, The Evolution of Human Sex Differences. This thorough, fair-minded, and comprehensive survey of the literature includes more than 50 pages of footnotes citing studies by neuroscientists, endocrinologists, geneticists, anthropologists, and psychologists showing a strong biological basis for many gender differences. While these particular studies may not be the final word, they cannot be dismissed or ignored. Nor can human reality be tossed aside. In all known societies, women have better verbal skills. And men excel at spatial reasoning. Women tend to be the nurturers and men the warriors. Harvard psychologist Steven Pinker points to the absurdity of ascribing these universal differences to socialization. It would be an amazing coincidence that in every society, the coin flip that assigns each sex to one set of roles would land the same way.
Yeah.
That's true. A recent study on sex differences by researchers from the University of Turin and the University of Manchester confirmed what most of us see with our eyes. Despite some exceptions, women tend to be more sensitive, aesthetic, sentimental, intuitive, and tender-minded, while men tend to be more utilitarian, objective, unsentimental, and tough-minded. It is true that we are not yet fully understand the precise biological underpinnings of those universal tendencies, but that is no reason to deny they exist. And there are many tantalizing theories. Consider, for example, Cambridge University's Simon Baron-Cohen. He is one of the world's leading experts on autism, a disorder that affects far more males than females. Full disclosure, suffer. It's not fun. Individuals with autism tend to be socially disconnected and unaware of the emotional states of others, but they often exhibit obsessive fixation on objects and machines. Baron-Cohen suggests that autism may be the far end of the male norm, or the extreme male brain. Okay. Go on. He believes that men are, on average, wired to be better systematizers. Is that a word? And women tend to be better empathizers. This is a data to back it up, presenting a wide range of correlations between the level of fetal testosterone behaviors in both girls and boys from infancy into grade school. It is not hard to be attracted to theories like Simon Baron-Cohen. Looks at the way children play and how men are distributed in the workplace. After two major waves of feminism, women still predominate, sometimes overwhelmingly, in empathy-centered fields such as early childhood education, social work, nursing, and psychology. While men are overrepresented in systemizing occupations such as car repair, oil drilling, and electrical engineering. There are no signs of them going to surrender their trucks, rockets, and weapons to glittering lavender planes anytime soon. Well, I think we've seen otherwise. Harvard psychologist Mark Hauser has what seems to be the appropriate attitude about the research on sex differences, respectful, intrigued, but also cautious. When asked about Baron-Cohen's work, Hauser said, "I am sympathetic. I find it odd that anyone would consider the work controversial." Hauser referred to research that shows, for example, that if asked to make a drawing, blue bosoms, boys create scenes of that means one person, all males and males drawing with cars, always draw things, cars, rockets, or trucks. He mentioned that among primates, including our closer relations and the chimpanzees, males are more technologically engaged, while females are more involved in details of family life. Still, Hauser warns that a lot of seemingly exciting and promising research on sex differences has not planned out and urges us to treat the biological differences with caution. Clearly, gender differences are driven by some yet-to-be understood interaction between culture and biology. We must bear in mind that no one is claiming that all men embody the tendencies of their sexes. Some girls have superb spatial reasoning skills and little interest in nurturing, while some males reject rough and tumble play and prefer calm, imaginative games. When we speak of gender differences, we are referring to statistical differences between groups, not the rigid determination of individuals. If we say, for example, that women tend to enjoy romance novels more than men do, we're not saying that all women enjoy them. Others is right that we need to proceed with care. But where is that care when the social constructionists are concerned? Through their research appears to be there is still marching on with their workshops, regular guides and tutorials. Confident in their theories, we have taken on the task of socializing the American child. Oh, goodness. There is much to be learned from classrooms where teachers are actively attacking the schemes of their pupils. Peggy Orenstein's Schoolgirls, Young Women's Self-Esteem and the Confidence Gap was written in association with the American Association of University Women, just after the AAUW had alerted the country to the plight of its short-changed adolescent girls. Orenstein visited several middle schools to see firsthand how they were coping with the confidence gap. As a trusted insider, Orenstein was given full access to classrooms and were raising the gender consciousness of students. From her detailed report, we get a good understanding of how the new gender fair activists view boys and what they have in mind for them. The climatic section of Schoolgirls is entitled Anita Hill is a Boy, Tales from a Gender Fair Classroom. Orenstein describes the classroom of Ms. Judy Logan, an award-winning English and social studies teacher at the Everest Middle School, a public school in San Francisco. Logan has gone far as anyone else in transforming her classroom into a women-centered community of learners. Indeed, Logan is something of a pedagogical legend among girl partisan activists. Jackie DeFazio, former president of the AAUW, says that a teacher like Logan, who puts equity at the center of her classroom, fills her with hope. Mary Pfeiffer, author of Reviving Ophelia, praises Logan for offering a new vision of what our schools can give to our children. When Orenstein stepped into Logan's classroom for the first time, she found it somewhat of a shock. There are images of women everywhere. The faces of Abigail Adams, Rachel Carson, Faye Waddleton, and even the fanciful future women smile at 3 student-made quilts that are draped on the walls. Reading racks overflow with biographies of Lucretta Mott, Ida B. Wells, Emma Goldman, Sally Ride, and Rigoberta Menchú. There is a section on Pele, a Hawaiian goddess of volcanoes, a giant paper posters on the wall claiming women are one half of the world's people. They do 2/3 of the world's work. They earn 1/10 of the world's income. They own 1/100th of the world's property. At first, Einstein found herself wondering, where are the men? Then one of the characteristic click moments that feminists often report, the light dawned and all was clear. In Miss Logan's class, girls may be dazzled by the reflection of women that surround them. Perhaps for the first time, the boys are the ones looking through the window. Logan's classes are unusual and fun. She's popular with her students, but according to Ornstein, many students complain that she is unfair to boys. One 6th grader, Polly, says, "Sometimes I worry about boys, that they kind of get ignored." Another says that her brother had taken one of Miss Logan's classes, and all she ever talked about was women, and he did not like it. Even the girls get tired of all the women-centeredness. Ornstein reports one is complaining, "Ms. Logan, I feel I am not learning anything about men, and I don't think that is right." Ornstein attracts the girls' attention to their low self-esteem. Because of the hidden curriculum, girls have already become used to taking up less space, to feeling less worthy of attention than boys. By contrast, one of your student, Mindy, spent 3 years with Logan and said his wife as her model of running sheep, has clearly learned the lessons that Logan strives to impart. Here's how the student explains the boy exactly what she's in. I think it's started simply in their place. In our classes, we teach just focus on men. Boys don't complain that they're sexist. They say, it's different in those classes because we're focusing on important people in history who just happen to be men. As Ornstein describes her, Mindy rolls her eyes to indicate the incredible cluelessness of boys. Mindy's reference to those other classes shows she has indeed learned to listen well. The new pedagogy justifies its intense focus on women by reminding us that allegedly gender-neutral classes in such subjects in the age of discovery and the rise of science are all about men. like Columbus and Isaac Newton. Now it is time to put women in their rightful place, in the center of attention.
Is it
In one
over?
history class, the girls
The
take
air
over
is
the
clear
discussion and go after the
again.
boys for being sexual predators.
And the goats seem to have
Okay,
come to
the
their
girls get
senses
angry, Logan
again.
gets more animated.
I
The girls'
don't
anger is
really
a sign of what
understand it,
pedagogy
but
is
I
working.
assume we
This
have
is very
you to
important,
thank.
scary, and profound conversation you are having. What do the boys have to say for themselves?
We found this in a cluster of those flowers after they
The boy
wilted
tries to
again.
placate the girls.
You
It's
were
true that some
pretty
guys are assholes
insistent
in
on going
school.
after the others,
But there are nice
so
people too.
I
During
guess
subsequent
it
male bashing
belongs to you.
session, a girl points out that through sexual harassment happens to girls more
Thank you
often.
for helping
Girls
us.
are doing it to boys as well. We go up and feel on guys too. That's a good point, says Lily. But not one she chooses to pursue. She soon stops the discussion. We've got a lot done on this. The class is about sexual harassment. It's about women making history. But later, she will return to the topic of sexual harassment and explain to her students how it is part of a hidden curriculum that
Here we
teaches
go.
girls to be second-class citizens. They learn to become silent, careful, not active, or assertive in life. Logan's pedagogy turns out to have its own hidden curriculum, which he teaches in every class, regardless of the subject. It is unflattering to males, and they learn their lesson. And they learn the lesson.
All right, I'm in.
Luis,
I
7th grader,
made it.
later confessed to
I
Orestein, I
infiltrated
couldn't really
that
defend
kid's
myself because
spaceship
it's
without
true.
the
and it
alarms
pigs,
going
you know?
off.
Oh dear.
I bet
As a
she's
final,
collected a ton more
undefined project,
timepieces than
Logan's
I
5th grade
have.
social studies class made
Now
a quilt
where
to celebrate
does
women we
she
admire.
keep
Logan was alarmed by one of the students' Muslim square. A boy named Jimmy had chosen to honor the tennis player Monica Seles, who, in 1993, was stabbed on the court by a deranged man. He had drawn a bloody dagger on a tennis racket. It's not the sort of thing a girl would think of. Jimmy's square may be unique to the history of quilting, but Ms. Logan did not appreciate its originality. In his own defense, he said, "I thought it was kind of important. A tennis player stabbed just so she couldn't win. The teacher insisted that he start again and make an acceptable contribution to the class quilt. I can see why Logan did not want Jimmy scoring the class quilt.
must be
But
where
perhaps
she
Jimmy was
stores
looking
them
for
all.
some way, within the confines of a feminist quilting environment,
Time
to
to
assert his
mess
young
with
maleness,
time a
which was
little.
under direct assault by his teacher. Logan, clearly exasperated, did not see it that way. She confided to Ornstein, "It was feel like they're being forced to another room. He tried to pick on him thinking he's sort of like a man." Jimmy is left looking despondently at his rejected square. Jeremy, another boy in the class, showed no progress. His Muslim quilting square celebrated Rosa Parks. Had been done to Logan's specifications. When he handed it in, Logan turned to Orson saying, this is how you teach about gender. You do it one stitch at a time." Much taken with our remark, Orson used it to end her book. Well, it appears we're running low on time. This has been wonderful. And terrible at the same time, because I can't talk. Although it appears that next time, on A Hat in Time, we'll be going to the final area of the game. Finishing things up. But for now, I think Reading with Matthew will have to take a stop. So this has been Matthew, and Reading with Matthew has been quite fun. See you guys next time for an actual video with actual commentary. See you guys then. Goodbye.